Well, first I just want to welcome everybody. I'm Britt. I publish the Geist newsletter. I'm sure most of you that live in District 1 probably get that, or have for the last 7 or so years. And, you know, I met Pete back in the early days, back in 2005, when Fishers came out and announced their Geist unification plan. It was in November, it was the week of Thanksgiving. I'll never forget my phone ringing off the hook, people wondering, what's an annexation? What's this mean to us? Are taxes going up? Is my address going to change? Do I have to marry a town councilman? No, they never said that. But a lot of questions came up. And out of that came the Geist United Opposition, which was a group that came together. And for 4 years, this group volunteered their time and effort and gave Fishers all they could handle and kept that forced annexation off the back until this last year when thankfully, Mitch Daniels stepped up and introduced this 1% tax cap and kind of made the tax increase a moot issue. You know, Pete was a guy that came in really early. I think he came in right after the first of the year. So we'd only been kind of forming ourselves for about a month. But we really kind of lacked some leadership. You know, I always tell people it's kind of like the Confederate Army. You know, you kind of get whatever shows up and you have to deal with that and try to get organized somehow. But Pete came in and we kind of knew that Pete was going to be somewhat of a ringer for our group. But when he came in, within the first meeting, I knew right away he was going to be the president of the group. And I think it took us about 2 more meetings and we had a board formed and Pete was elected the president of the Geist United Opposition. You know, I've seen the GUO was one of the best grassroots organizations I've ever seen. I've never seen people with degrees and have, you know, lawyers and these full-time jobs give so much time for their community. And it was all led by Pete. Pete was at the helm of that, and Pete was the mouthpiece of that group. I've seen him be a great leader. I've seen him manage a group of residents that have more passion than sense sometimes, and he still made that work. I've seen him at town hall meetings. I've sat next to him at the State House for hearings on annexation. I've seen him in courtrooms. I've seen him representing the residents of Geist for the last 5 years like nobody else could represent the residents. I've even seen him in coffee shops having coffee with people during annexation that just had questions but they were afraid to come to meetings. And so Pete would take the time and would go meet with them. And he talked to them one-on-one, he listened to them. And I think that's a great attribute for a leader in our community. I've seen Pete go door to door, raise money, sign petitions. Some of his neighbors are here tonight. You probably had your arm bent a few times to give money or to sign petitions. And he wants you to make an informed decision. He's not out just trying to get money out of your pocket. He takes the time to explain the issues to you in such an easy way that you agree with him and you want to support him. And lastly, I've also seen him go toe-to-toe with people. You know, one of the first articles I wrote about Pete back in 2006, when he became president, is the term we had was he was a bulldog. And we saw that. And I think anybody in the group, and I know there's a lot of GUO people here that were part of that whole movement, they saw Pete the bulldog many times. And when Pete is right, and when he has the support of his residents, he doesn't back down. He's not going to roll over to the town of Fishers because he was appointed or because he's in the Good Old Boys Club. Pete will be the voice of this district, and he'll be the voice, and he will represent you like nobody else. This is a pivotal year. This district was carved out, and Fishers, to their credit, did make good on their promise to give Geist their own seat on the town council. So they carved out District 1. There's some maps over the table. That our district, District 1 here, was mostly the annexed area. They put in a few extra pieces. But they gave Geist their own voice. There's nobody in this seat. It's also a pivotal year because they got this city versus town discussion going on. You've got a couple town council members who have never been opposed before, all of a sudden are having people signing to run against them in the primary. Pete's going to be a fresh voice for this area. That's a new council seat. So there's going to be some changeover. There's going to be some new blood going into the Fishers Town Council, and I think Pete is the best man to represent this district. You know, for the last 8 years or so, I've been doing my newsletter. I've tried to stay out of politics as much as possible. I try to avoid it. And I don't even live in District 1. I live on the south side of the lake, as many of you know, over in Lawrence. But just like the residents that kind of came together for the GUO and they said, we're not going to take higher taxes without a fight, I felt compelled to help Pete, because I feel Pete is the best representative for this area. Not just the best, in my mind, he's been representing you guys for the last 5 years already. Let's put him in the Fishers Town Council. Let's let him be the voice of this area. And I think you'll feel very confident. If you haven't met Pete before, or you don't know much about him, I suggest you stick around afterwards and get to know him and follow him on his website at peteforfishers.com and follow him on Facebook and pose questions to him, and he'll give you straight answers. He doesn't beat around the bush. He's not a politician, and he's not in the good old boys club of Fishers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce a new voice for Fishers, a guy I've got the utmost respect for. I give my full endorsement. I'm taking my time out, setting up my lights because I support this guy. And you're going to see me knocking on doors in your District 1 because I want everybody in this district to know the kind of person, the caliber of person they have that's going to lead the Fishers Town Council, Pete Peterson.